Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wavy Baller Hub. If this is your first time watching with me, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and follow the movement that is the Wavy Baller Hub. We are doing a tactical analysis show today. I'm really excited for this, guys. Really excited for this. Trying to give you that consistent content going forward. It's been not a fun season, but in terms of this content thing, getting up and running again. Exciting to connect with different people. I have a great guest today. I met this guy in England when I went to Old Trafford for the first time. Obviously, again, under very disappointing circumstances, the City Derby last year at Old Trafford. But it was fun to talk to, fun to meet some guys out there while I was in Manchester, have some conversations, got to hop on the United View, do one of the fan cams. It was real cool. And Cam, who is a part of United View TV, one of the tactical guru over there, I've enlisted his services. He was really kind and generous to hop on today, and we're just gonna have a real good conversation. He just did a show on United View TV that you guys should check out, really in depth with Flex. It was dope. So make sure to check that out. But before you do that, make sure to stay live with us. I got my guy Cam with me. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, good man. I've been excited for this for a long time. Obviously,
Yeah.
met you back last year. Terrible circumstances, but
Yeah.
it was great talking to you. And it's been it's nice to see the channel growing and everyone watching. Make sure
Appreciate
you
it.
drop a like, get subbed, and yeah, Temi's a top guy. So
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. There's so much to talk about, man. This has been a nightmare 2 weeks as a United fan. I don't even think in my scariest dreams I could have thought the season would have started like this. But it has, and we should, evaluate, look back, see what Ten Hag has done. I've seen a lot of people criticizing him already 2 games in, and I'm like, obviously there's been some mistakes. There's been some things that, he has to get up to speed on, right? But on the large, this is so much deeper. But I don't want to talk about the Glazers today because it exhausts me. It's a consistent conversation. I don't want to talk about Richard Arnold. I don't want to talk about Murto. I just want to talk tactics, players, all that good stuff, man. So first question I have for you, obviously the first couple of games we've employed that 4-3-3 that we did all preseason. And it just hasn't looked the same, right? Preseason is the biggest farce in the history of sports.
yeah,
I usually don't get too excited for preseason, but for whatever reason, I let it seep into my brain this year, and it just hasn't been the case. It's been the complete 180. So in the first couple of games, just at a real high level, what have you seen from Ten Hag and these players, and what do you think has been maybe the biggest challenge so far for us?
yeah. No, I mean, I think everyone else was the same as you in preseason. I know I bought into it big time. It was looking good, but I think the big change is that obviously in preseason we were playing mostly teams with 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. So I think realistically that's what Ten Hag would have set up his team to play against. And we've seen in some of the structures and some of the ways we've seen already, even in the Premier League games, that they're geared towards playing a team that sets up in a 4-3-3. So I think, yeah, while we haven't looked as good in the Premier League, we've looked terrible most of the time, and there's issues with the players. But I think for a large part of that, tactically at least, it is to do with teams not setting up in exactly the right way. And obviously,
Right.
obviously players should be able to adapt and all that sort of stuff. But until you've got the plan A set, it is difficult to start just
Yeah.
changing things completely. Because otherwise you end up with doing what we did under Solskjaer, where you just change every single game, you change
Yeah.
5 or 6 different things for the opponent, and then you can't really build a consistent team. You can't really build a system because it's changing all the time.
Right. I completely agree with that. And if we were facing Bournemouth next week, I would I would completely say stick with the plan, figure it out, all that good stuff. But we are facing an angry Liverpool side. 2 draws to start off against Fulham and Crystal Palace. Not the start they expected. And now they are looking for blood. They've obviously, Klopp has obviously seen what's happening to us, and I'm sure he's going to tell that team we will absolutely destroy this team if we just do what we always do, right? And it's been sitting in my brain that if we play the same formation against Liverpool, we will absolutely get wiped off the floor. And it's made me nervous. I've I've gone back and looked if Ten Hag has played a three at the back in the past. I think he has. I saw an interview with some of his former players. I think at Utrecht, I think they employed a three at the back at some point there. Um, what are your thoughts on potentially making a formation change early on? Obviously, like I said, it's been a nightmare. Would you, for Liverpool, tweak it, or would you go with the same formation as usual?
It's a really tough one because the first thing he wants to do, Ten Hag, especially given that there's only one game a week. If there was midweek games as well, then I think it's easier to make a formation change this early on because you still get enough repetition of the pattern that you want to play, the system you want to play, so that you get the consistency, the continuity. But
Mm,
the issue is because there aren't midweek games, you have to wait another week for the next game. He does need to build continuity, he needs to build partnerships, needs to build trust in the system. And so I
mm,
think he might have to try and it's a really tough decision, but I think he'll probably have to stick with the 4-3-3.
mm,
And if he does stick with the 4-3-3, that basically means Fred and McTominay have to play because yes, they're
right,
bad, really, really bad on the ball, but
right,
we just need those legs off it because we're not good enough to keep the ball long enough at this moment in time. So
right.
I think he'll have to stick with the 4-3-3. I think a three at the back wouldn't be a disaster. Obviously, we saw Arteta implemented that. Was it last season or season before? But
Yeah.
he had that for quite a few games. It did work for him, and I think obviously Ten Hag's not as rigid as Guardiola in the way he sets things up. Obviously, Pep every single game pretty much 4-3-3. He only changes very, very occasionally,
Mm,
but Ten Hag's not quite as rigid as that. So he maybe we do see a change, but I think he'll want to try and keep some of the partnerships going on. I think especially with Nunes out, he might think
mm.
now actually he can get away with playing Martinez again and keeping with that four at the back.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. And I just I completely hear what you're saying. But again, I think it comes to a point. I think Ten Hag won. I think maybe his biggest mistake so far for me is just I don't think he understood the quality of the league in terms of the lower, the bottom half of the table. So Brighton's obviously they're probably like a right, they're a floater team, right above 10th, right underneath 10th. Um, Brentford just got promoted. So I think in his head, he's thinking, this, I can kind of do what I want and impose my will. And little did he know these players just don't run hard enough. Like at least the Manchester United players don't run hard enough. They don't do the basics right for you to implement your plan. Um, and I think for me, at least, a three in the back would give us an opportunity to play some players who do have good feet, i.e., Victor Lindelof. Maybe you could employ a Malacia who's decent with his feet. Um, allows you to, allows he can go forward and have safety behind him with the likes of whoever Martinez, it's Varane, whatever the case may be. But before we even go to that, I want to talk about the 4-3-3 we do currently have. What is our best 11 right now? Without De Jong coming in or whoever the case may be, he's probably not coming, right? Whatever signings we bring in, whether it's Rabiot, it's Gakpo, all these names we're linked with. What is our best 11 right now?
Well, right off the bat, it's going to be one that a lot of people probably won't agree with, but I think right now I'd drop David De Gea. I think Tom Heaton in his time at Burnley, yes, in terms of his distribution, I think, to be honest, I think in terms of clipping passes to fullbacks, which is probably one of the more important parts of distribution that we need, I think he's good at doing that. But I think more than that, what he showed at Burnley was that he can come out, he can claim crosses, he can be aggressive, and he can come off his line. And I think that's so important to have in the team right now. And if we're going to persist with Maguire, which I think I really don't know if we should, but I think if we
Mm,
do persist with Maguire, then you need to at least change to a goalkeeper that can sweep to just close off that target area, make it harder for the opposition to just play one long ball and be in. So I
mm,
think I'd probably put Tom Heaton in there. Defense, if this is fully up to me to choose the best team now, Dallo, Varane, Martinez, probably Malacia left back.
mm,
I put Fred in the connector role as he's been playing. Probably the thing is with Fred, he's not good enough to reliably bring the ball forward without losing it. Then if you're going to play Fred, you do sort of need McTominay to just balance it out with being able to
mm,
win duels and run at people and
mm.
run around basically. Even if
Yeah.
it's just running around kicking people, you need Fred and McTominay there, I guess.
All
And in
right.
front of them, I'd probably put Ericsson in the number 10 role, and then front three, Sancho. You know what? I'd play Sancho on the right, Garnacho on the left, and Martial up top. I think Rashford's had enough chances now, and Marcus Rashford's one job in this team is be aggressive, get at players, run at them, and try and whether you go inside, go outside, just do something at pace. And instead,
Right.
he just seems intent on slowing it down every time he gets it, and that's not
Right.
what he's in the team to do. That's what
Right.
maybe Sancho can do that because he's a good playmaker. He's got that sort of side to his game. Rashford doesn't have that. If he slows it
Right.
down, you know exactly what's coming. Every
Right.
single time, it will just be he'll stop the ball, cut in, dribble into a crowd of players, and shoot right at a player that blocks it every
Right.
time. So
Right.
I think for me, Garnacho's got to have a go.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good lineup. It's a tough one. There's like you mentioned, Rashford. I've been saying this on my channel for months and months now. He's not good enough. Like it's gotten to a point where he's lost his confidence, right? And I think what was allowing him to score so many goals was his ridiculous belief in himself, right? Like even though he's not the most polished player, I think he just had this ridiculous belief in himself. The fans were behind him, and he was a Manchester boy. Now he just can't figure it out. Um, and there, I agree with the Fred and McTominay thing heavily. Even though it's an unpopular opinion, at a minimum, especially in the Premier League, at a baseline minimum, you have to have two midfielders that have an element of steel to them, right? I think because in United's heyday, we were playing, let's just say, Scholes and Keane. People think, oh, we played with Scholes and Keane. Paul Scholes had a very, very innate understanding of getting back, tracking back, doing the basics right before you even thought about all the wonderful things he could do on the ball, right? And Eriksen, Bruno, and even Van de Beek to an extent don't really have that quality. So you do need to essentially junkyard dogs in midfield. And honestly, it sounds terrible. Most of the bottom half teams, this is what they do to survive, right? They'll have maybe one creative guy and just have workhorses in midfield, even on the wings, maybe less talented wingers, but wingers who have the ability to track back, do the basics right. And then obviously the Bruno thing. You dropped Bruno. I see Bruno's in your background there. Let's talk about that because I think a lot of people still have this belief in Bruno that he can turn it around. Yesterday on Sky Sports Monday, I saw that Gary Neville put Bruno Fernandes as one of the two green. I don't know. He had like a transfer tier for Man United. It was like green, amber, red. He put Bruno Fernandes as green. I'm just like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? How? And it seems like Ten Hag likes Bruno, but can he really play in a system like this?
Well, I think the first thing we've got to sort is just being able to keep the ball better. Because I think once you do that, it sort of solves so many other problems. If you keep the ball better, you face less counterattacks. And then if you can do that reliably, then you can do what Rico suggested and you can play in midfield where maybe Donny and Eriksen are playing together. But
Right.
until you can do that, exactly as you said, you need two midfielders that can win the ball back. Two midfielders that have some steel about them, have the ability to run, bite into challenges, and that's the bottom line. Until we can keep the ball well, you've got to have that. And I think Ten Hag does recognise clearly that obviously if you're going to play a 4-3-3 with one sitting midfielder, which obviously has mainly been Fred so far, then you do need someone else coming into that area. That's why we've seen Diego Dalot inverting, tucking in, and sort of being an extra number in that area.
Right.
The problem is if you lose the ball all the time and you've got Maguire on Dalot's side if he's tucked in, and you see what happened against Brentford, where Maguire's left covering half the pitch because Dallow's tucked in and he's away from the action. And then one long ball to a fast striker, and they're in. So you need midfielders to cover it. You need faster centre backs. There's big issues all over the park at the minute, and it's just it's getting to the point where I don't even know what to say about it. It's just like you're stuck. You're screwed with Fred and McTominay because they've got nothing on the ball, and you're screwed without them because then you can't win the ball back.
It's a very precarious situation we're in heading into a season. I said, and this probably is the most naive thing I've been saying over the past couple of months. I was like, you know what? I don't care about transfers that much, right? If Ten Hag can get our players to be 10% better, all of our players should just be 10% better, then we're going to be a better side than we were last season. I truly believe that because I think people get a bit too invested into the transfer window at times and, get themselves excited and then disappointed. And it leaves you, wanting. Now, Rabiot is somebody, bring him in. Would you have said that? 3-4 months ago? Hell no, you wouldn't have said that. And now we're getting to a point where we're desperate. I'd bring in whoever, right? Just to get bodies in because we are that threadbare in these different positions. It's crazy.
Yeah, the thing with Rabiot is that I think we've seen, especially in the Brentford game, how badly we do need him. We need someone. What we can't afford to lose from the midfield is McTominay's physical attributes and his ability to win duels and his a player of his size, really. Especially if we're playing Fred and Martinez, we're not good enough in the air with those guys. We
Right,
need someone that can balance it out. So we can't just replace McTominay with some sort of like 5'8" nippy
right,
midfielder. He needs to be a big. That needs to be a big physical player. That's what Rabiot has. He's
right,
McTominay's sort of frame, sort of physicality, but technically much better. So we need someone like
right.
that. And yeah, you're right. A few months ago, I wouldn't have said that, but I
Mm.
would. I think now is a signing that we really need to make.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see, man. Um, I'll just read out my 11 really quickly because it's just I'm torn on so many of these different fronts. I think on the whole, I agree with your back four. I'd probably still stick with I know that De Gea has been a absolute he's just been shocking. He's been shocking. But that being said, the Tom Heaton thing, I can't wrap my head around it. I genuinely can't. I know he's a decent keeper. I know De Gea, this is probably De Gea's lowest point in his career in terms of it's getting sad because he on paper he's a club legend. We have to be real. Like he was the reason, we weren't in 10th, for so long, but now it's getting to a point where he might have a very like a Casillas exit, right? Like one of those just very ugly, disgusting exits. But I persist with him. Call me crazy. I think Dallo, Varane has to play, right? And this Maguire thing, it's becoming interesting to me. Maguire does have decent feet, right? But he has decent feet when he has time and space. If you apply even the slightest bit of pressure, you could see it in Brentford. He does this thing where he'll just hold the ball and wait for somebody to move and just look around and not really be progressive. Sometimes he takes 3, 4 touches when he could realistically take 1 or 2. Problematic for me. Varane, he might not be Varane kind of looks awkward on the ball. I'm not saying he's bad on the ball. He just kind of looks a little bit awkward, but I don't care. He has everything else that you need, the pace and behind the one-on-one defend. I'm never nervous when Varane's in a one-on-one situation. When Maguire is, I'm terrified, right? And just the all-encompass, he's an all-around center back, right? He has to be playing, and I think that he will be playing very, very soon. I think Ten Hag's just trying to, feel things out and then make some wholesale changes. Obviously, Martinez is going to play. I'm a big fan of Victor Lindelof, which is why I think this three at the back could be something we can employ, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But if not, Martinez has shown that he's good on the ball. And again, I think a lot of people are giving him a hard time because of that third goal where realistically Ben Mee did bully him. Like he didn't even jump. That was like, oh shit, this is not good. But on the whole, I think his passing and when we are playing a progressive system, we'll see that he can be a net positive for us. Shaw, another person I'm a fan of. I know most people don't like him, but he's been terrible again. Very, very bad. I'd put him last year now. Fred and McTominay, like we both mentioned, at 10. I play Ericsson, and then I'd still play Ronaldo up top, but I put Martial on the left and Sancho on the right. I think Martial does track back on the left hand side much better than Marcus Rashford does. Jadon Sancho tracks back. He didn't do very well against Brentford, which was really disappointing. But on the whole, Jadon Sancho is kind of like a right midfield player to me. He's not. I wouldn't count him as one of these Antonys or one of those pacey wingers. He's kind of like a traditional right midfielder. Schomerfield says first thing to do release Ronaldo. I mean, that can be a discussion for later. But yeah, I think a Sancho, Ronaldo, Martial front three gives us an element of creativity out wide and of the ability for Ronaldo to get some of those passes that he's not getting from Marcus Rashford, right? So, what are your thoughts on that, real quick? If we deployed Martial, out left, maybe allowed him to kind of cut in or drop deep to receive the ball in that left-hand position.
Yeah, I see that. And he definitely does track better than Rashford, 100%. He works harder on the pitch. And I think a lot of time the fans have ignored that. And obviously, because Rashford's homegrown, he's been given a bit of preferential treatment at times. But I think at this point, Martial realistically is the glue that holds that front line together. What he's best at is dropping deep to receive the ball, drags defenders with him, he commits them, and he's really good at then turning around and pinning the defender and actually managing to get past them and leaving a big gap in the back line. So I think if he's going to play, I'd rather have him as a 9. I think, we could try him on the wing, but I think right now, as Sommerfeld said, maybe not release Ronaldo, but mainly the only reason I don't really want to release him is because I don't have any faith that the club will replace him, and we're a bit light up top already. But
right.
I think if we can maybe bench him, that's probably the best. He won't take that well. It'll probably damage the atmosphere.
Yeah.
We're better off just leaving him out of the squad at that point. But I don't see where anything's going to come from. He doesn't really seem motivated to play. He doesn't really. I think he's grown up in playing a different kind of football. It's almost a different game where he grew up, where really the tactical side wasn't so important. Now you've got managers that micromanage every little bit of the game to the point where even your fullbacks now have really specific defined roles. In this position, you do this. This position, this point when the ball's here, you go there, you go elsewhere. But now, like when Ronaldo's grown up, is all the tactics has been is just get the ball to the best players, Ronaldo, Rooney, whoever, really. There's a little bit of times when you've got things like if Ronaldo's playing left mid, but I don't know, Rooney's striker, technically,
right.
On paper, Rooney should be the one tracking back just to save Ronaldo's energy. But now everything's so micromanaged. And so Ronaldo dropping deep and coming to get the ball and sort of, that thing he does where he comes deep to get the ball. He doesn't even make any effort to turn. He just makes a few passes. The only person that benefits is him because he feels a bit sharper. And you can't be doing that now. There's no time for that. You just damage the team structure.
I agree. I agree with that. Listen, the Ronaldo thing is a conundrum. I really, really wish that we had handled this months ago. And I pity Ten Hag because he's caught between a rock and a hard place. Schoenfeld says they're releasing him. Simon Stone on BBC is reporting this. Guys, for those who are in the comments, make sure to hit the like button for me. Make sure to hit the subscribe button for me. Make sure to follow Cam. All of his information is in the video description. His Instagram, or not Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and I think there's one more thing I posted in there. So make sure to show some love to Cam. I don't even know what team would take Ronaldo now. It's mid-August. Team's not in position to build around him. 100%. I think that any team he goes to, like a Madrid or something, he'd be a squad player. Realistically, I don't see where he'd be right now, where he'd be the focal point. Benzema's miles better than him at this point in their careers. So. Doesn't make any sense. Sources have told BBC Sport that they fear there will be no change to Manchester United's current issues until Ronaldo has gone. I don't know what that means. There's a belief amongst some that even if the forward left and there was no replacement, the general uplift would trigger a significant improvement in overall performances. I believe that's really bad, but I believe it. What's going on with Bear? Yeah, no, like honestly, I don't want to get on a Ronaldo conversation, but he is undoubtedly probably one of the best 3 players that's ever played this game, right? It's when you have that presence around a bunch of young players for the most part, right? Like it's a pretty young squad. There's a lot of kids in there. Maybe they're not starting, but even off the bench, Martial's still relatively young. Scott's still relatively, I'm not saying they're kids, but they're mid-20s. It's awkward. It's weird, like having a guy like that who's so great just hovering around, and he's angry and he's petulant. He's not clapping the fans off. He's just it's a really bad. Apparently, he had a little spat with Steve McLaren. It's just it's a weird one. I have another question here. Actually, I want to talk about the 3 in the back thing, and then we'll get to some signings that we could make. But this 3 at the back thing, I've really slept on it a couple. It's been on Tuesday. The game was on Saturday. I've slept on this. I'm like, I think we should play a 3 at the back. I know you're a little bit hesitant on that, but I think that 3 in the back gives us the ability to add some players I think would be a net positive and drop some players that have been a net negative, right? So we've been playing with 3 midfielders. Let's play with just 4 across that, a base 4, in midfield of Malacia, Fred or McTominay, Ericsson or Van de Beek or Bruno, and then Dallo, right? And then have Varane, for me, Lindelof on that right-hand side, and then Martinez on that left-hand side, whatever the case may be. That because all 3 of those center backs are, decent to really good on the ball, right? That gives us the ability to get rid of either Frederick McTominay while still having some defensive structure to us with the base three, and then having some creativity in midfield with an Ericsson, right? And he doesn't have to worry too much about tracking back because there's Fred, there's Dallo, there's Malacia covering for him, and we have pick your front three: Sancho, Ronaldo, Martial, or Garnacho, like you mentioned. Martial through the middle, Sancho. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I really think that it defensively we've let in, what is it, 6 goals already. We could have been way more. I think I think Brentford took their foot off the gas. I'll be completely honest with you. But what are your thoughts on deploying that? I know you're a bit hesitant, but is that something we could realistically do, and could Ten Hag coach that up in the next week?
Yeah, I'm hesitant because I think it basically destroys what everything Ten Hag's worked for tactically so far. And I think, well, maybe not destroys. I think his principles are still intact, but in terms of the system and the individual
Right.
tweaks like Dallo inverting and the way the wingers work, well, we're trying to isolate Sancho as much as possible and sometimes Rashford on the other side. But I think if we're going to stick with three at the back, I think it's a stick or twist situation. You either change the three at the back and then stick with it for a while,
Mm-hmm.
or you keep it as 4. Because I think if you switch to 3 at the back, we've got players to make it work. I think it could work really, really well. We've got centre backs that are good on the ball, as you mentioned. Lindelof,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Varane, who's decent enough. Martinez is fantastic. He'd be really, really good as a left centre back. His passing options from there, that would be it would help us a lot in terms of playing out from the back. That would be fantastic. But the issue then, and I think, is we're probably better off in that situation dropping Ronaldo for in a 3 at the back. I think we probably would go for a 3-4-3, rather than a 3-5-2. But
Right.
I think it would have to be Martial up top, Sancho with him, and then on the
Pick
other
your
side,
left winger. Yeah.
yeah, I think on the other side it wouldn't necessarily. I think it's a bit like Chelsea. We could go with a one that's a bit more of a winger in that front three, one that's a striker, or
Mm.
basically Havertz false 9 type thing, and then
Right.
you have one that's more of a 10. So you could maybe have Ericsson in that front three or Bruno in that front three.
Right.
So I think it could definitely work, but I think if we're going to stick with it, then do it. But if it's just
Right.
for a one-off game, I wouldn't really back that, to be honest. But
Right.
yeah, on Ronaldo, I think I'm actually really interested to see if he does get released,
Mm.
what happens? Which club picks him up? Who
Yeah.
around Europe actually wants Cristiano Ronaldo? Could we be
Right.
left in a situation where he's been released and
And
there
he
isn't a European club that wants him?
wants
Does
him. I
that
think I
human?
think I think that's a very realistic thing. What's the point of discussing team strategy if Ronaldo plays? I hear you. I hear you, Showerfield. We have seen time and time again, Ronaldo just doesn't work in most systems.
Because he doesn't want to
Um,
listen. He doesn't want to do it.
yeah, no, and I completely agree with you. I completely agree with that sentiment. I think that I think the biggest thing we all need in life is self-awareness, right? And I think
Yeah.
Ronaldo, when you're that great, it's hard to have that, honestly. Like, especially at this age in his career, like he's not a bad striker, right? He just needs too much. He's needy, right? He needs service. He needs top talent around him. He can't play with this squad of players, where the Rashford can't cross, right? There's Fred and McTominay can't play in between the lines. You know, our Bruno's lightweight, right? There's just so much weirdness around Ronaldo. But I don't want to make this a Ronaldo thing. We're 30 minutes in. I'll hang if you can hang around for 5 more minutes, Cam. We'll have a quick discussion. Guys, thank you so much for hopping in the comments with us. Would you replace Maguire before the transfer window ends? If we want to play 3, we need better. I would have replaced Maguire 3 months into his Manchester United career. No exaggeration. I said it early on, Cam. I was like, it was almost like a shock to me. I'm like, yo, this guy's not good enough. Like, I don't know what people are talking about when they see him play. I'm like, he is not, to me, he's not better than Victor Lindelof. And I mean that with my whole heart. Like, I've never thought he was better than Victor Lindelof. I think Victor can pass better. I think he's quicker, even though Victor's not that quick. It's not saying that much. Reads the game better, less prone to mistakes, can win one-on-one situations that actually decent, right? All better. I mean, it's crazy to think about that we signed that guy for how many, what is it, 80 million pounds? Oh my God. If Ronaldo has no place at Manchester United, shouldn't Maguire also be shown the door? Obviously, but who's gonna sign Harry Maguire? I mean, seriously, like Who would do that? I could see Dortmund pick him up with their unexpected striker problems. Ronaldo would never go to Dortmund. I don't know. I would the lesser team in Germany. Why would he do that? I can't see it. That's a big heart. Maguire was solid for 2 years under Ollie. No, he wasn't, and played every game during that period. That's true. But again,
He was fairly solid for a while, but I think the thing with Maguire is that you got to remember why we signed him. We signed him
yeah,
because we were so bad in set pieces the previous season. We were conceding so many goals from those sorts of situations that we
yeah,
needed someone that was just incredible in the air. It didn't really matter what else their profile was as a defender. They had
right.
to be fairly good on the ball and incredible in the air. That was the important bit. They had to be genuinely one of the best in the league
Is
in
he
the air.
incredible in the air?
Yeah, yeah. That's the one thing you can't really deny.
So
I
yeah,
think,
so like I would say defensively he's incredible in the air. I would say
yeah.
in
I
our
mean,
box,
yeah,
in our
I mean,
yeah,
he should have scored a lot more goals in opposition
mm,
box from set pieces. The number of chances he gets, number of headers he has the chance to, free headers he gets, he should be bearing a lot more. He should
yeah,
probably have 12 goals for United by now, but he doesn't.
oh yeah,
And but yeah, I think the reason we signed him, remember, is because of the set piece thing, and part
mm,
of that again comes back to the keeper. So
right,
we've got this keeper with a lot of weaknesses, and because of that,
hmm
we've had to sign a centre back who we didn't really care about the overall profile. We cared about one thing because the keeper can't catch crosses, can't do any of that. So we need a centre back that can do it instead, which is
mm,
fine. But then he's got so many deficiencies as well, and we've got to have another centre back that can cover all of that sort of stuff. So we're
mm,
better off in that sense, just ripping both of those two out of the team and starting again. Just creating
mm,
players that are overall good profiles. Get a good keeper that's well rounded and everything. Doesn't have to be as good at shot stopping as De Gea in his prime, but if they're well
right,
rounded overall, they can catch crosses better, can sweep better with their feet, and then you get a centre back who's better at everything.
right.
Then I think we're in a much better position as a team.
No, fair. Former Red said yes, he was. Our fan base is just stupid, and has extremely short memories. I bet you still think Ollie was the problem. Okay, I'll put it like this because I don't want to make it. Again, this is not a Maguire witch hunt. This is a we've kind of done the tactics. Now we're just kind of talking a bit generally here. But I would say that Maguire had a really, really, really good like 6 to 8 month stretch
Yeah.
during
Same with Luke
lockdown.
Shaw.
Same with Luke Shaw during lockdown. Remember, we were flying. He was playing well. I think that's the best period he's had from that December to the end of that season. He was really, really good, right? But I would say the rest of his Manchester United career has been very. It's been like
But
this. It's been
if you
like
look at
this
that
for the
six
most
to eight
part.
month period, the rest of the team was good as well. And what does
Yeah,
that tell you really? Because it was behind closed doors. They were good
right.
when there's no pressure from fans in the stadium. They can't
Exactly,
handle things
exactly.
psychologically. It was the easiest period they've had.
Exactly. And again on the Ollie thing, I never hated Ollie. I never had this like what I just again, he just wasn't good enough to be managing Manchester United. It's that
He
simple,
made
right?
he made a lot of mistakes. He wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of his decisions. He wasn't brave enough, and I think with the way he set up his team, he was changing the framework, changing the tactical idea
Yeah.
every single week to the point where you couldn't build a continuous system.
Right.
So
Right.
it was almost impressive what we managed to do as well as we did at times.
Yeah. I think all Man U fans need to protest from a crowd just as much as Clay said. It's funny. Former Red, the collective hatred towards Ollie is something United fans will regret in years to come. No, I don't think. Well, there. I will say, I take that back. There was a strong hate for Ollie in certain. I try to be as. For those of you watching my channel for the first time, make sure to hit the like button. I try to be as objective as possible when it comes to some of this stuff. Obviously, we're fans and we're gonna have our favorites. We're gonna have our people we don't like as much. It's just it's it is what it is, right? And there's nothing wrong with having opinions, as long as you feel like you can back them up. Go ahead. I'm not too mad. If we could make 3 signings before this window ends, who would they be for you, Cam?
Yeah, I'll do that in a second, but I just want to mention the hatred towards Ole and towards De Gea and towards Maguire. Part of the massive problem with we get this hatred is because we don't move players on quickly enough. There's
Mm,
people at the club who definitely see it coming, and the analysts, the stats guys, they'll see this all coming, the decline in form, all that sort of stuff. But the board don't make decisions quickly enough, and that just leaves people exposed to all this sort of hatred. If they made
right.
decisions at the right time, then this wouldn't happen. Ole would have left on a high, probably at the end of his interim period. We get
Mm,
someone in that was trusted to succeed him, and then David De Gea would have left when his shot stopping and stuff started to decline massively because that happened
right.
after 16-17. Even if he
Right.
waited a couple more years, he would not have got that new contract, and that's opened him up to all this hatred now when he can't perform. The
Mm,
indications were all there, but the club isn't run well enough, so these guys are opened up to all this sort of hatred.
right.
In terms of the 3 signings, then I think the most important area we've got to improve is midfield. So Frankie de Jong and Adrian Rabiot would be 2. In terms of Rabiot, obviously, wouldn't be the one that we expected a few months ago, but I think you've got to keep some physical attributes in there because we desperately need that. And Rabiot delivers that. Obviously, De Jong is pretty much the best you can get in terms of being in that
Mm,
connector role, linking the play from defence to attack.
right.
So I'd get those two. And then third one, I would get Diogo Costa from Porto in goal. Fantastic
Mm,
goalkeeper. Much better sweeper than De Gea. Brilliant with his feet. Comes out and catches crosses. He's the Portuguese number one now, I believe. He's a fantastic goalkeeper. I think he'd make a massive, massive difference to not
mm,
just how the team plays, but the individual performances of the defenders as well. Because I'd have so much more confidence what's behind them. They'd have to defend a lot more aggressively. So I think that'd be my three signings, even though we
right.
do need a forward. But those
Right.
three are my signings.
Right. That's a good list right there. Obviously, let's get in the comments, guys. Make sure you drop your three signings. Ugly Bear says my three dream signings: Zhao Felix, Han Ming Son, and Joshua Kimmich. Oh man, that's hilarious. United fans don't believe in building a project. It's all or nothing for them. They don't realize that it's just a marketing tagline. For me, I think we need a goalkeeper. Obviously, David De Gea is one of my favorite players that's worn a Manchester United jersey when he was at his apex, right? There was a point where he probably was the best keeper in the world because of how good his shot stopping was. Um, I haven't watched this Porto keeper you're referencing, so I'm not going to be a one of those people who try to act like I know people who I don't, because I see that way too much in football Twitter and way too much on YouTube. But if there are some goalkeepers I have watched that I like, the keeper from AC Milan, big fan of his,
Yeah.
Magnan, and also David Raya from Brentford, right? Like I really like David Raya. It's him, it's Unai Simon for Spain, and then David Raya is second, and then De Gea is third, right?
No, Robert
Uh,
Sanchez is ahead of them
oh,
as well.
now Sanchez is ahead of him, right? So
Yeah.
it's
The head
it's
doesn't even get
crazy.
in the squad anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I like David Raya a lot. I think we could get him for a relatively cheap price. We saw what he was capable of this past weekend. Very aggressive, young, has room to grow. Obviously in midfield, and again, these are realistic signings, right? Realistic signings. Tielemans is on the last year of his deal. I do think we just need some midfielders who have the ability to create as well as be kind of like a base. Tielemans not the greatest defender in the world, neither is De Jong, right? But we just need some baseline midfielders that understand the league. I think that's another thing that we've done really poorly in over the past 10 years is scouting the league and picking players from the league who could be a benefit to us. Like we have not done that well. I think that and I hate to go back, but like when David Gill and Sir Alex were running things, we would just pick players from in different parts of the league, starting with Roy Keane from Nottingham Forest, and picking him when they got relegated, like things like that, little things like that we don't do anymore, right? And obviously Frankie De Jong would be my third one. I don't see a world in which he comes after this starts of the season, as well as the Chelsea interest. Chelsea looked amazing over the weekend, even though it was a draw. If he had the option between Chelsea and United, why would he ever in a million years choose Manchester United? It's just the state we're in, right? Alvarez from Ajax, Gakpo from PSV, and Pavard from Bayern. Oh no, not Ben Pavard. I was with you on the other two, but Ben Pavard is to me. Here's one more. Bro, I get it. You're an Ollie fan. I love it. I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy for you, but it's over. He's moved on. I'm interested to see if Ollie gets another job. I'm really interested. It's been a little less than a year. We'll see if he gets a job here in the next year and a half. I think there's a world where he gets another job, right? Maybe a championship job, maybe a lower level Premier League job. We'll see. We'll see. Guys, can you drop your favorite, your top three signings? But again, last question for you, Cam. Thank you for hanging in there with me. How much pressure do you think Ten Hag is going to be under? Do you think they'll give him time? Do you think that he has a short leash because of how bad it's been? Like, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I think it's going to be very tough for a long time now, especially if we don't get a new goalkeeper and we don't replace Ronaldo properly. There's going to be issues, and there's going to be situations where we're making big mistakes because of the players we've got in, when realistically a lot of the fan base could see we need to replace them. But the problem is a lot of people in the fan base aren't very patient. A lot of people still think football is what it was in sort of the 80s and 90s, where it's just a very simple game. You go out on the pitch and the best players will perform, kind of thing. It's not like that anymore. There's a lot of things that have got to be right for it to go well. So I think Ten Hag will be under a lot of pressure very soon. The only wish I have really is that the board stick with him. And I think Arsenal were in a similar situation last season where a lot of fans wanted Arteta out because things weren't going very well. They had a really bad start to the season, but I think the most important thing is just sticking with Ten Hag, making sure he gets the players he wants, and giving him the time. Because I think give him enough time, and he will make this into a fantastic squad. But we've just got to be aware and be prepared that things are going to go wrong, and we're not going to win anything in this year, and probably next year as well. Year after, possibly, but there's going to be at least a year or two where we don't win anything, and we're probably not even going to be close. We may even finish sort of around 10th this year. It's bad, but just got to give him time.
I think a lot of people were hoping for that Europa League. You know, me, I was thinking, yeah, we can get Europa League this year. No, we're not going to win Europa League this year. And then we might, again, listen, I think Sir Alex's first season, he finished 11th, right? I think because of social media and all of these different platforms and the 24-hour news cycle, it's really difficult to have time and patience, especially, and also the money that's being pumped into football. It's really difficult to have patience, but I would implore fans to be patient with Erik ten Hag. He has proven that he's a very good manager at a base minimum, right? Taking a team to a Champions League semifinal. I think he's been to the quarterfinals as well. He's won pretty much everywhere he's been. He deserves time. He deserves a ton of time. United needs a right back. I can only think of Pavard as a realistic option. Fair enough. I have a strong feeling from recent events that Danik Ball will make the first team with Garner and Mabry both leaving. I can't believe Jimmy Garner's leaving. It's that's a bad one right there. I mean, if McTominay is getting chance after chance after chance, I can't imagine why Garner wouldn't at least get a 6-month go in the team. It's crazy to think about. But we're coming up on 45 minutes, guys. Cam, thank you so much, bro, for hopping on with me. Really appreciate it, guys. Make sure to follow Cam on all of his platforms. His information is in the description. Make sure to show some support to him on United View TV. He did a really great tactical analysis show. Make sure to check that out with the OG Flex. Fans need to forget Glazers out. What will be, but fans need to get behind Erik ten Hag, even if he selects Tae Chong. We need to bring that underdog mentality. I don't know why that was so funny, but it really is. It's hilarious. You're on mute, boss.
If he picks Chong, I'm losing patience.
No. Tae Chong is. I don't even know how he's still in United's books. He's not very good. But yeah, again, Cam, appreciate it, guys. Thank you for everyone who's in the comments showing love. Those who weren't showing love, it's all good. You know, I appreciate the interaction all the same. Cam, is there anything else you want to plug real quick?
Yeah, make sure you get yourself subscribed. Temi's the top guy and great channel. Hope to see it keep growing in the future. So thanks for inviting me.
We're less than like 7 people away from 300 subscribers. So guys, make sure to show some love. But as always, I will talk to you guys very, very shortly. Okay. Deuces.